Hi guys, welcome back. It's Nick here, back with another episode of our Transport game series. Yeah, okay, sorry it's been a long time since I've come back to this. Essentially what happened was I had a lot of uni work the last couple of weeks slash months. I had an upload schedule and everything and that all just went to crap basically. But yeah, the series is not dead, do not panic. I will be continuing with it whenever I have time. It just might not be 2 episodes a week as it was for the first couple of months I was doing this. I'm sure you can understand that was like about 40 minutes of content every week. So for me it was like a couple of hours work that I just didn't have time for. But I do really enjoy making these, so you will see more in the future. And thank you to the people who are still watching. Essentially my plan for the future is actually going to play and walk around a bit because it's nice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make 4 more episodes including this one, which make a total of 24, which I think is like the standard amount for a TV series in a lot of places. So I'll do the 24 and that'll be really focusing on getting our terrain system absolutely perfect. And then when we start back, episode 25 will almost be like season 2, and that's when we'll start adding our transport gameplay stuff. So we've already got ideas worked out for maybe a rail and road network plans, adding spline geometry, which I'll explain more later in the series. It's essentially a way of like adding nice smooth curves in any direction you want, rather than having to drag and drop meshes. And it also means when we add our things later on, they're going to move around our systems really perfectly. But yeah, forgetting that for now, what we're going to do is completely perfect our terrain system, get all these textures on, maybe a water system, and then we're going to add a few trees just to make it look a bit nicer and complete the scene, and we'll be ready to move on. So that's the next couple of episodes, guys. Thanks for sticking with it. So without further ado, we'll jump right in. So last time we created this terrain texturing system, as you can see I did change some of the textures. So I go into my terrain manager. The grass texture was just way too bright for me, so I've changed it to this ground boggy marsh, which I think works a bit better with the textures we've got. But all we've got at the moment is a cliff texture and a grass texture, and we want to have a bit more than that. So I'm just going to stop the playback here and jump back into our script. So this is what we created, so cliff and grass. So the first thing is, are we a cliff? No. So the great thing about this is, now we've got that is cliff value, we can then use that later on to make sure that we don't make any mistakes and tell 2 textures to be in the same place at the same time, which will make them have a weird sort of overlapping effect that isn't really desirable. So the next thing we want to do is say, are we rocky? So in our terrain manager we've got a rocky texture here, so that's the next thing I'm going to do. And very simply, all I'm going to do is use the steepness value again. So I'm going to create a new float, is rocky, which equals math_f, and this is again going to clamp the steepness. So the steepness is an angle between 0 and 90. Up at the top we've clamped it at 50. So the rocky value should start slightly lower. Sorry, this clamps it minus 50, so it's going to be 90 minus 50, which is 40 degrees. So from 40 degrees to 50 degrees, we'll fade in our rocks. And I think from 30 degrees to 40 degrees, sorry, that was cliffs earlier, we'll fade in our cliffs up here, and 30 degrees to 40 degrees we'll do rocks. So for that to take effect, what we need to do is subtract 40 and then clamp it between 0 and 10. And then the final thing we have to do is divide by 10.0f, and this takes our value between 0 and 10 and turns it into a value between 0 and 1. Okay, so now we've got a value for our rockiness. So all we have to do is apply this to the alpha map. So I'll set alpha map x, y, A rocky texture is texture 1. Remember we're 0 indexed. Got these spaces all wrong. I'm trying to match it with the one below. Yeah, x comma y at position 1. Now the thing is, we have to still take into account that we could have a cliff in these situations as well. So what we need to do is say 1 minus is cliff is the maximum amount we could have. And then also we want to do like is rocky in with this as well. So if this is like actually that's not quite right. If we just delete that. Okay, so although we've got this value for rockiness, there could also be a cliff there. So what we need to do is take the is rocky value and subtract is cliff, just so if there's a cliff there, we don't put rocks there as well. Yeah, and I think that's pretty much it. The final thing we have to do is for the grass texture, we don't want it to appear where there's cliffs or rocky, so we'll add those two values together and do a 1 minus, and that should give us a fair amount of rocks around our scene. So just check there's no errors with that. There shouldn't be. That's great news, so we'll just click play and see if this gives us a fairly nice terrain. So there we go, we've loaded up. Okay, so you can see immediately the terrain looks a bit different. Let's just test to see if our rocky texture is actually here. So the rocky texture is supposed to look like this, hilly undergrowth. I think that's kind of present in a lot of places. Let's just compare it with our grass texture. Boggy marsh. Oh, you can see here, if you, I'm not sure if it will come across in the video, but there is a stripe between the cliff here, there is then the rocky texture here, and then the grass texture down here. So I think this is what it's telling us is basically our angle for rocky is a bit too steep. So we actually want to increase this value to get a lower angle. So let's try minus 60 and see if that gives us more of the result we were looking for. I think you can see a bit of rockiness around. It's hard to tell, it's very hard to tell in these areas. One thing I am also slightly concerned about is, if you look here, there is cliffs on this flat piece of ground, actually. So it might be a case that our steepness function is not actually correct. I'll just go check on the documents and we'll find out why that is.
2,000 years later.
Okay, I'm not sure if the steepness is correct or not, but I think at this point we should just move on and add a couple of extra textures and not worry about that too much at the moment. So I'm going to add an extra piece of data up here. I'm going to call float height, which is just going to be the height of the position we're at. So I'm going to do terrain.terrain data to get our information, and then there is a function called getHeight. So just pass in our x and y, and that should give us a height value. Now I'm not actually sure whether that height value is scaled between 0 and 1 or the actual thing in the terrain, the actual height, like 0 and 200. I'm assuming based on previous experience it's going to be between 0 to 1, so we'll use that for now. It might be that we have to change that later. So now what we're going to do is do some the water edge and the snow conditions. So if we go up to the top, what we're going to do is add a couple of extra variables to our biome. It's going to be, actually I'll put them on the top so they're easier to get to. Public float water threshold. So this is the height that the water is going to appear in our terrain. And public float snow threshold. And that's when the snow is going to appear in the terrain. So what we're going to do is, at the snow threshold, we'll fade in some snow. So if we say, I'll add some extra values down here. Float is snow, which equals mathf.clamp. and it's going to be, in this case, height minus snow threshold. Sorry, that should be biome.snow threshold. We're not actually using the biomes too much in this case. Actually, I think I'll add that to a... I'll just make the current biome up here, say int current biome, and just set that to 0 for now, because we haven't implemented full biomes yet. And we can actually add that to all of these. Current biome +2, and down here current biome. This just offsets from the current biome value, so if we change it later, we can automatically change all the textures that we're using. So what we want to get is the biome textures at position current biome dot snow threshold, and we want to clamp it maybe between 0 and 10, because that works quite well, divided by 10.0f to give us a value between 0 and 1, whether we have snow in that area or not. Oops, just forgot the divide sign there. Okay, so now we have this value, we can factor it into the rest. What I'm going to make as a rule is, if there's snow in an area, that trumps everything but cliff. Which means, and what I mean by that is, it will cover over any grass or rocky textures that would be there. And what I'm also going to say is, if there's water edge somewhere, that's going to trump everything. So if it's the edge of some water, that's always going to have water texture on it. Otherwise, it might have snow, or it's just normal textures. Okay, so that means we need to factor in the snow over here. So I'm going to take away is snow, and I'm also going to add that onto here. Actually, for the sake of consistency, I'll remove these brackets just to make it clear. Essentially what that bracket was doing is the same as what the previous line is doing. It's just a mathematical thing. If you subtract a load of things you're plussing, you're effectively subtracting all of them individually. So these two are essentially the same, except this one is taking the isRocky value rather than 1. Okay, so now we just want to set the snow value, so alpha map x, y, current biome plus, and the snow texture, let's just check where that is. So grass is 0, rocky is 1, cliff is 2, 3, grass should be 4, equals is snow. So that should give us snow on the higher peaks. Let's just give that a go, say snow threshold at 0.5, that way we'll be able to see it really easily. 0.5, let's see if it gives us any snow. Which certainly changed the layout of our scene. Yeah, we've definitely got the snow in here. You can see it on the snow grass. This is actually an awful texture. I really dislike this texture, but it's the best snow one that I currently have. So I'm afraid for now it's going to stay. Something interesting is happening here though. Oh, it's just blending into the cliffs. That's weird, because the cliffs are coming out kind of white. I'm not really complaining, because that looks cool, but I'm kind of curious to why that would happen. Okay, so this is the snow threshold set at really low. And what is going on here? This is just a load of random grass textures. I do not know what's going on in that place. That is really strange. Why we'd have strips of grass. This might be the root of some of our other problems if we just got grass coming in random places. This may take a bit of debugging, which I'll do in my own time, rather than wasting your time watching me trying to work out what's going on. But at least their snow texture is being applied, and if we set it to say 0.8, we'll see what happens then. This is where we're working out whether it's a value between 0 and 1 or a value between 0 and 200. Well, the snow is still everywhere. So maybe let's try a value of 150. This should mean snow is only on the highest points. Okay, you can kind of see what's going on here now, actually. We're getting big chunks that are being set to be snow. And strips that are being skipped. That is a really strange thing to happen. We had it slightly before where our whole terrain would be set to a texture. But nothing quite like this. But for now, I think we're going to have to leave that till the next episode. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully the next episode will be up very soon, within the next week. And until then, well, I'll see you in the next episode.